Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Jonathan Ellerby with another live 12 at 12. If you are someone who watches these later and you've ever doubted whether these are really live or happening every day, I can tell you it's definitely true. Today, I was on the phone with the school guidance counselor till like 10 minutes before doing this. Then I had to run out and talk to the garbage man. So I barely made it here today. And I think I look like I just climbed out of bed or something. uh, anyway, it's a good way to start though, because it is the topic of death and grief and loss. And so why not start that topic with a little humor? Um, so we're talking about death, loss, and letting go for this week because, regardless of our direct personal experience, and yes, I have a headset on, so you have clear audio. Regardless of our personal experience of this pandemic that we're going through, uh, most of us are very aware that there are hundreds of thousands of people suffering and tens of thousands of people dying. And and the challenge that we face as we talk about death, as we understand death, is that of course we are all dying. We are all always dying. And as they say, no one gets out of this life alive. But most of us haven't been with death enough to be comfortable with when it comes, how it comes, and whether it comes in a way that we feel comfortable with or a way that, in fact, we are ready for. In many ways, it doesn't matter when someone goes. Most family will rarely feel ready for someone's passing, although certainly that does happen, that we may be aware of a person's illness, or we may know that a person's of a certain age, and so death doesn't come as much as a surprise. I'm I'm laughing because I look like I've lost my mind, and I actually I lost my phone, so I couldn't even record this like normal. Uh, so I'm using my computer, and I don't even know if it's on. I don't even know if anyone's seeing this. But I'm going to continue. I'll just keep talking, even though it's just making me laugh. And and I guess if I were to connect my own experience today to what I'm talking about, it's that most of us just haven't cultivated enough levity in our relationship to life to be able to let go when things don't go the way we want. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And so if I have to take a lesson from the fact that, today's live cast is not the way I like it or the way I want it, that's every day, that's every day of our lives. And so what we experience, um, when we think everything's under control, and when we think we know when we're going to go, and when we think we know how long we're going to live with our loved ones, it's a kind of false sense of security. Now, this isn't to say that if you embrace this kind of open-mindedness about life and our time on earth more wholeheartedly, that it's going to suddenly be easier for you in the acute sense. In other words, the pain of losing someone we love is always intense. But when we have a more expanded view of self and life and the nature of the soul, then we hold that pain differently. And we don't complicate it with confused thinking, with regrets and doubts, or for that matter, even the self-suffering of, of thinking, wishing things were different. So what we're clarifying is that it's absolutely not just normal, but important to feel the pain and the hurt of losing those we love, those we're connected to, those we're defined by. That is human, and that must be felt. Grief is a natural part of life, Sorrow is a natural part of life. And so we must embrace and make time for all those things. Talk about them, write about them, create ceremony and ritual around them. All those things must give you permission to feel what's arising. But what we're really talking about today is the fact that you must be careful that you don't add unnecessarily to the suffering you are experiencing, to the pain you're experiencing. Let it be sad enough to know that someone you love will not be in your life. Let it be sad enough to know that someone has been in a tragic accident or faced an unexpected illness, and so there is pain in the family around that. But what we don't need to do is add the mental anguish of confusion, resistance, wish for control, anger at things that are inevitable. And so what helps with that is to have a more complete, a more full experience of who and what we are. And that means, for example, if you take the eagle, the star, the mouse, that perspective that we talked about it in another 12 at 12, the star being the highest, broadest perspective of life and time, the eagle looking at choices and options throughout a lifetime, the mouse focusing on the details of the moment. You can use that perspective to say the mouse is consumed with the personal relationship, what we've lost, why we wish it weren't so, all the details that will have to change. The eagle has the bigger perspective that says this death is painful, this loss is painful, but I also know that that's a part of life, and I should be grateful. I can be grateful for whatever time I've had. There's something I can learn. And then the star embraces it with compassion and love for the one that's making the journey, for the friends and family left. There is more space to be loving to oneself and to everyone involved when you go to that ultimate perspective that knows that we are all here briefly, and that it is not for any one person to know how long another person should be here, how they should go, when, or why. On that note, what I'd like to do is touch on a topic that I'm going to expand on more tomorrow. I think I actually did refer to this yesterday, and it has to do with the belief in and possibly the nature of the soul. Another 12 at 12 talk that I did, the way it's identifiable is the caption underneath starts, honestly, this is the most important, something like that. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. And it talks about conditional, essential, and universal dimensions of self, which very much match the mouse, the eagle, and the star. And the concept here is, or the belief, the universal sort of belief in different traditions around the world, is that we are more than this life, that there is something to this essence that makes us unique, distinct from our conditioning, distinct from our culture, distinct from our life and worldview. And in this essential self, we come to sense, to feel, to realize that there is something to who we are that exists before this human life, that actually comes into the little body of an infant and departs the body when we pass. This thing, whatever you want to call it, soul, essence, life force, it seems to carry in its energy not only the signature of who we are, but a capacity for evolution and a sort of memory, so that as it moves to other dimensions or other lives, it is accumulating the impact, the results, the growth, the evolution of each life. And some of you may remember other 12 at 12s that we've done where we talked about evolution on a grander scale, that each person is going through a kind of cycle throughout their journey, and yet the soul itself is continuously evolving, and that spirit, that universal center, remains consistent in each stage, evolution, and moment. But what this brings us to as we come to the end of our time is the idea that the soul really has two primary purposes. And this is where I'm going to pick up tomorrow. It is absolutely my sense, my experience, not only from my own, I guess, spiritual states and spiritual work, but also, through my studies and my different degrees. We see this kind of message throughout traditions, that the soul's primary purpose is to learn and to teach. To learn and to teach. The tricky part is most of us are consumed with what we're here to teach. We wish other people would get what we want them to get. That's the kind of self-imposed teacher consciousness. Instead of recognizing what other people are here to learn is none of our business. The only thing we can fairly, safely, vitally focus on is what we are here to learn. And the reason why this becomes an important part of the discussion about death and dying is that it cannot be for us to know another soul's journey. Why they're leaving now. Why during a pandemic. Why one of the thousands. Why are they creating the lessons that they are creating for others? You see, in each person's passing, the most incredible way we can dignify their departure is to play our part completely, which means to focus on what it is we can learn. Because in that moment, the timing, the experience, that is for them. Why they're going, when they're going, that's their business. But the manner in which it leaves us behind, that is for us. And to spend our time wishing they did it differently, that they exercised more, that they didn't smoke, that they healed their relationships before they went, it's a waste. It's a waste. Because their journey is fulfilled. Their journey is fulfilled, and they are now moving on, however they do, to integrate whatever they have, whatever they've accumulated. We deny the beauty and integrity of another life when we stand in regret and judgment and a wish for control. The true blessing of any life is to learn from it. What did that moment mean to you? What are they showing you about your life? What are they teaching you about what you're forgetting? What are they inviting you to experience about the beauty and the preciousness of life? I've come to believe that more often than not, people who go suddenly, tragically, or unexpectedly, such as at a young age or from a wild pandemic like this, I've come to believe that those souls are actually not going because they didn't learn or didn't learn enough or didn't take the lessons in front of them. I kind of see it as the opposite, that they are going precisely because their primary function is as teacher, so that others won't suffer, so that others can learn, so that we can have a fuller life. And this is an extraordinary way to enter into a time of loss. So, as usual, even with a funny start, our time is up quickly, and we're going to revisit the nature of the soul and its two purposes tomorrow. But I'd like to close with this beautiful reading by Saint Isaac of Nineveh. And I encourage you to stay connected to these kinds of messages, stay connected to readings and writings and videos and groups that help you explore this expanded way of being, that help you feel the sense and nature of your own soul. Because you can feel that in your life and know that the most essential part of each and any one never dies and is not ravaged by disease, injury, or illness. So check out my website. Make sure you're also looking up what we're doing in Althea Center, Denver. We have a wonderful Thursday hour-long group. We're going to do something incredibly special for Easter. So be with us on Easter this coming Sunday at 10:30 Denver Mountain Time. And with that, I'm going to invite you to take a breath. Let's close our eyes, open our hearts. Feel the stillness in yourself. And allow yourself just to notice how the lessons and ideas of today have affected you and what you want to hold and explore. Keeping your eyes closed, we just feel the words of this beautiful poem, this beautiful prayer. Be at peace with your own soul. Then heaven and earth will be at peace with you. Enter eagerly into the treasure house that is within you, and you will see the things that are in heaven. For there is but one single entry to them both. The ladder that leads to the kingdom is hidden within your soul. Dive into yourself, and in your soul you will discover the stairs by which you ascend. So thank you for joining me today. We'll do it again live tomorrow. I'll be a little more prepared. It's not garbage day tomorrow. And I thank you. I love you. And I hope you're well.